Hey there, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Beatriz, and I'm so thrilled that you're here with us today. I am really excited to bring you a very special conversation today with a very special woman. Today, I'm leading the conversation with Dr. Lisette Sanchez. This woman is incredible. She's an entrepreneur, she's a licensed psychologist, a whole doctora in counseling psychology, and a sought after speaker who's making waves in how we think about first gen identity and leadership. In this episode, we dive into some really interesting topics. Dr. Lisette will share her wisdom on how to identify your next steps when you're feeling overwhelmed by all the possibilities. We talk about the power of staying focused on just one step at a time instead of getting paralyzed by the big picture. And we talk about something that I think a lot of us struggle with, which is asking for opportunities even when it feels scary or uncomfortable. Here's what really gets me excited about this conversation. Dr. Lisette has this really beautiful way of reminding us that as first gen professionals, we are already confident. Yep, you heard that right. The very experiences that sometimes make us feel like we don't belong, for example, being the first in our family to go to college, is actually incredible proof that we are confident and resilient. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfortable, get ready for a conversation that's going to leave you inspired and empowered and seen and ready to take on whatever is next. This is the kind of energy that we need as we continue expanding in our careers and in our lives. So let's dive in. Okay, so I'm going to start. And it's officially live. So thank you so much, Dr. Lisette, for coming on to the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. I am so excited to have this conversation with you today. Since I've met you at that event, at the Latina Presente event, and you were one of the speakers, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm so excited to get to know more about you and for listeners to get to know you and your story and your trajectory. But why don't you take the time to introduce yourself, share what you'd like to share, and we'll get started.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you so much, Beatriz. And you were a speaker at that event too, so I think
Oh,
that was a special experience that anyone who
yeah,
spoke at that could bond over a little bit. When you
yeah,
attend an event and you're attending to learn, but you're also putting yourself out of your comfort zone and
yeah.
memorizing, or I did not memorize my speech. I think you memorized your speech. Did you memorize? I don't remember.
Yeah, I did. I did memorize most of it, but it wasn't too long. It
Yeah.
was pretty short. It was maybe less than 5 minutes. It was, 4 or 5 minutes, but it was so interesting to go through that process. I try to memorize it. As I was going through that process and meeting with Yvonne, who's the creator of that event,
Mhm.
she let me know actually that is actually very common because I was practicing different parts of the speech in different parts of my apartment to kind of associate the
Mhm.
speech better or memorize it better. I'm not sure, but yours just came out so natural, like so naturally. So I am curious how your process is and and you're also a much more seasoned speaker. So I'd love to know, but tell us,
Yeah, yeah.
let us know who you
Yeah,
are.
yeah, I remember who I am. Yeah, I just, it's like I have a hard time. Someone's giving me flowers. I'm like, but let's honor the flowers you received at that event too. But okay, so
Yeah.
about me. So again, I'm Doctora Lisette. I go by Doctora Lisette. And I have a few different hats. So the doctor comes from being a licensed psychologist. So I have a PhD in counseling psychology. And when I went into entrepreneurship, initially it was to build my private practice and found that a lot of opportunities for speaking started to happen
Mm,
for me. And I really enjoyed them. So this year, actually, I'm on my journey where I'm building that pillar of my business, very much focused on public speaking and growing that and further pushing myself out of my comfort zone. So we'll definitely get to talk around like what do these prep process and procedures look like. And I'm also a writer. And that role is especially important to me, the speaker and the writer role, because a psychologist, that was my dream. I saw myself doing this therapy, working in maybe as a professor, doing that kind of knowledge sharing
Mhm.
connection
Mhm.
growing up. I think mostly the helping portion. I think always
Yeah.
seeing myself as a helper. And but I was always really shy when I was younger. I was pretty quiet. I was not the student who raised her hand in class to ask questions. When you interact
Mm.
with me, you may think of me more of as an extrovert, but in many of these spaces, I did not feel very confident at all. I was very
Mhm.
quiet. And when it came to my writing, when I first started college, I was in a remedial writing class when
Mhm.
it was a struggle getting through my doctoral program because of all of the writing involved, right? So I got through it. And so these two pillars of my business, I think, are especially important to me because they were the areas where, when I was younger, did not feel like strengths in any capacity. And I think
Yeah.
further connects to this big point that I make as a person who specializes in working with first gen professionals in
Right.
talking about and learning about how our unique lived experiences really are what shape the kind of professional we are. And often we look
Mm.
at those experiences negatively. Like I
Mm.
might look at having to have been a voice for my parents, having to translate for them, having to care for them. Of course, there's moments where I wish I could have just been a kid, right? Could just be a child that plays with no worries.
Yeah.
But I look back and I recognize how much of a gift that those experiences were when it comes to what I get to do now, right? Like
Yeah.
I learned to lead, and
Yeah.
I learned to take risks because of them. And since I'm talking about my parents very quickly, the eldest daughter of
Mhm.
immigrants. Yeah, from my parents are immigrants from Mexico and El Salvador. Uh,
Yeah.
I have one younger brother, and we've had very different paths, but I'm very proud of him and everything that he does as well. And so yeah, I think that's a little bit about the different aspects of my identity, like my roots, where I grew up, my immediate family, my professional, and then I think something just fun about me, things that I like. I love plants. You can see some of my plants behind me.
Yeah.
I have a cat that, if you follow me on any social media, he will make an appearance. He's a big fat black cat. His name is Louis. Um, and my biggest support system, like with a cheerleader, is my husband. So
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that and sharing a little bit about you too and like who you are as a person, right? What really struck me is some I as I gotten to know your work and gotten to know how you help people use their cultural identity to be leaders and to show up in this space. The way that you described it around sometimes feeling this negative aspect of being parentified perhaps or like having to do these really adult things when we were young, but then that actually the other side of that is that we learned how to take care of ourselves, show up for our people. And so seeing the other, you explaining that, it's such a refreshing way to see that yes, we as first gen, I'm also the eldest daughter. Like sometimes we get so tired of being in that role, right? But remembering just like how we show up for people and how that makes us as humans, how that shapes us as humans, I think it's such an important reminder uh that we should have a skill that we should have. So that's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing, Dr. Lisette. And, I feel honored. Like, so something for me, like as eldest daughters, I think we try to going all the way for me meant like we have to go to be a doctor, una doctora. But I never saw too many like people like me, Latinas, actually reach that and do that. It is an achievement that is so incredible. And so I just want to acknowledge that you doing that is such a great example for like many people like me and like little girls who are like thinking, is that even possible? How long does it take? And, but thank you for being that example. And I do want to go into that, but
Mhm.
first I want to check in with you. So I want to check in. Where are you at right now in your season of life? Like, where are you currently? What season of life are you currently in? And if you'd like to share, just checking in with you in this moment in time.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that that's such a big question. So I say it's like a big
Yeah.
question. Where am I in this season of my life? Because as
Yeah.
you'll know about me probably felt this conversation. I have so many big passions, so many big dreams. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I would say that what I want to say, I think I'm in my season of anything is possible. But I know that that's been the belief that I've had since before. There's a reason I have
Yeah.
a PhD and that I have this degree,
Yeah.
right? Because I think there was a part of me
Yeah.
that always believed that anything was possible, even if I didn't feel that I could fully name that or embrace that. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really understand it. But I think
Mm-hmm.
if I think like my mantra now, it's anything is possible. I just have to take action
Mm-hmm.
and think about sort of what that looks like. And that applies to all facets of my life, the personal, the professional, like whatever it might be. So I think of it in the personal sense. Um, I my husband and I, we've been married for almost 2 years now. So we're in the stage of our life as we're thinking and planning for our future family, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and kind of going through and experiencing that process and what it's like to, you know, challenge beliefs that I grew up with around what the timeline looks like for people to
Mm.
get pregnant when they start trying.
Yeah.
And then also like honoring my timeline around why to wait,
Yeah.
why we, like that was so important for me and like navigating that. So I
Yeah.
say like that kind of personal. And like I mentioned my husband a bit, we're in a season of he broke his ankle recently. So um, navigating, supporting him, but also supporting each other, right? Continuing our partnership and what that looks like. So
Yeah.
I'd say like those lots of these personal, I don't know what I would call those. I always want to call them milestones, right? Of these experiences that when you go through any kind of challenge together, it only brings us
Yeah.
closer and you grow, right? So like I feel that.
Yeah.
And then professionally, I mentioned this earlier, but I think the season of making my speaker hat being the primary hat that I wear when it comes to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, yeah. I think it just goes to show just how multifaceted life is, right? Just like all the things, all the things we want to accomplish personally, the things we want to accomplish professionally. And I think as women, I was just in a workshop this weekend where it was a workshop that focused on futurism and imagining a world that we want to live in and what could be possible. And I was thinking, imagine if there was a way that women were dominant in the tech space or the entrepreneurship space. How would that shape our society? Would we
Mhm.
still have worries about family over career or vice versa? You know? And so, but I feel like we as women, we're constantly individually, but also collectively redefining that all the time, just like what that means. So
Yes.
that's incredible. Well, thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
Okay, so with this theme that I really wanted to touch on this season for the Be a Boss Coaching podcast, I've been wanting to touch on just this theme of expansion. I feel like expansion just, at least for me, that's been a recurring theme. That it's this since the beginning of this year has been a theme that has shown up in different parts of my life, professionally and personally, uh, and definitely feeling that. And in navigating what expansion looks like and how it shows up in our entrepreneurship journeys and our careers and in life, I wanted to talk to other badass jefas and women who are also building themselves, building
Mhm.
their careers and building their entrepreneurship journeys and watching that unfold. And so I wanted to ask you, and this is like overall, um, i- this question I ask all my guests this season is what does expansion mean to you? How you think about expansion and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think of expansion as change.
Mm.
As I think the first word that comes to mind is growth, but growth happens
Yeah.
through change. And often the first change that people have to make is that mindset, the mindset around your
Mm-hmm.
belief around what is your capacity for expansion, right? Like, what is your
Mm-hmm.
capacity for growth? Some of us may sometimes set a limit on what our capacities for expansion for even reasons that you just explained now, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we live in a society that, I'm sharing with you about, like I'd like to start a family. I've definitely
Mm-hmm.
spent a lot of time thinking about like, well, what would it look like
Yeah.
when I give birth? What does that mean for
Yeah.
my business as an entrepreneur? What would I have to prepare?
Yeah.
What would I do?
Yeah.
And I don't think my husband needs to have the same kinds of thoughts or like preparedness in the way that I do, right? Because for
Yeah.
the person giving birth, there's a different physical, um, I guess, commitment and expectation that happens around that.
Right.
So kind of navigating that. And when before we even started trying, so I want to kind of like bring it back to this because I had a huge mindset shift here that helped me with growth and helped me be less afraid of it. Because
Mm.
as much as I've always wanted kids, let me tell you that it's terrifying. It's a terrifying experience. And I would think about it and I'm like, oh, because as an entrepreneur, I'm like, well, what will that mean? Like, what do I do? And
Yeah.
then I thought, like, am I really going to approach something that I wanted or that I want in my life with so much, I don't want to say fear because any big change is scary, but with so much
Mm-hmm.
negativity around the what ifs. What if this, what if
Mm-hmm.
that, what if whatever? And I
Yeah.
had this moment where I'm like, why is that the way that I'm shaping the way that I think about this? Why don't I think about the positives that this could do for
Mm-hmm.
me, the things that I can do, the and
Mm.
not the but, not the what if, but the and. I get to do this and I still get to run my business and I still get to do
Mm-hmm.
that. And it might just look a little bit different than what it looks like today, but I'm
Yeah.
still going to be able to do the things that I want to do. So then
Yeah.
coming back to your question on expansion, it's going back to your thought process to like our listeners and recognizing, well, what is your what if or your but that is kind of in your way? And how do you
Mm-hmm.
shift that to a way of thinking and like, I can do this and, whatever, like I can become a public speaker and, you know, and a parent, or I can be a public speaker and be afraid while I'm doing it, but still do it, right? Whatever your and is. Not I
Yeah.
want to do this, but I'm too afraid. It's and.
Mm. Yeah, like adding the end. I think, I mean, it speaks to your work, right? As the work that you already do with people and looking at those experiences that we've experienced as first gen Latinas and our cultural roots and looking at those experiences and looking, well, yeah, I translated these documents for my parents and I learned how to be very responsible, early on, right?
Yeah.
So it's really that mindset shift that I I totally agree comes into play when it comes to what it looks like to grow in your career, to expand. And
Mhm.
I call it expansion. And I do see like growth and expansion sort of interchangeably because like expansion feels like something getting vaster, like within somehow, uh, whether it's within your business or maybe the way you perceive or look at your situations.
Yeah.
Um, or like getting braver, getting more courageous as you come to different milestones in your journey as an entrepreneur. And so that leads me to this question around you deciding to pursue your PhD and your decision to pursue your PhD in psychology. Um, how did that decision to expand your education expand into this need to want to start a business or use that to start your business as a way to connect others to their cultural strengths?
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So really quick, um, the PhD took a really long time. Just to give people an
Mm.
example of the timeline for what it took, I did my master's right after my undergrad. So my undergrad was 4 years. Then I did 2 years of my master's. I applied directly to doctor programs, but I had one PhD interview and I was admitted to a master's program. And I was admitted to a master's program in New York. And I know you lived there for a little bit, Baptiste. So,
Yeah.
I was like, I have an opportunity. Or you actually lived there for a lot of it. I think you said 8 years. I was listening to another one of your episodes. You were there for a while. And I was there for for the 2 years that I did my master's there. And it was at Teachers College at Columbia. And so
Yeah.
when I got in, I was like, I got to go there. This is a great opportunity to live in New York. I'm from San Fernando Valley, North Hollywood.
Yeah.
I still remember finding out and telling anyone who would like look my way, like, I got into Columbia. Like the excitement that I
Yeah.
felt about getting in. And that's why I went there to make myself more competitive for PhD. Quick side
Yeah.
note, my parents told them the reason I'm saying Columbia is because when I told them I got into Columbia for my master's, they were like, "You're moving to another country?" So, like, for them, this idea, because
They thought it was Colombia,
they
the
thought it was
country.
Columbia. They thought it was Columbia. I'm like, no, mom,
Yeah.
it's New York. It's a really good school. Dad, it's, to this day,
Yeah.
like, I think they get it a little bit more now, but they
Yeah.
still, they're just proud of their kid, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so that was 4 years, 2 years, and then the PhD itself. And I ended up going back to the West Coast at the University of
Yeah.
Oregon, and I was there for 6 years. So
Okay.
then 6, 2, 8, 4, 12. And then you have a year of your postdoc because after you graduate, you still have to do 1 year of licensing. So 13
Wow.
years from graduating high school to becoming a licensed psychologist.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, incredible. I mean, it's wild. It's like the same amount of time it takes to become a medical doctor, right? But it's now this is literally psychology. So, yeah, psychology doctor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I want to say that. So then, and then I want to come back is when I was a kid, when I was in 6th grade, 7th grade, that's my earliest memory of telling someone I wanted to be a psychologist. When I said I wanted to be a psychologist, I had no idea that I had signed up for a 13-year dream or a career, right? Like
Yeah.
I thought, I say this is what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to go to college and that's what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
so as you can imagine my surprise when
Yeah.
I get into, my undergrad, I went to UC San Diego as a college major. And yes,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be a psychologist when I graduate because first gen, I don't know. My parents didn't even go to high school. Okay.
Yeah.
Figured it out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I get to school and I think the first semester, or first quarter, or maybe within my first year, we had to take a seminar that was called Careers in Psychology so that I could know what my options were. So I
Yeah.
remember showing up first day to that class and ready to learn about what I could do with this psychology degree. So,
Yeah.
imagine yourself like a brand new college student, you're halfway getting lost to find this classroom. You sit down, you're nervous before all the classes, and then
Yeah.
you're ready to learn. The professor then talks about the careers and then mentions you could be a psychologist. But to be a psychologist, you need this advanced degree. And I sat
Mhm.
there and I thought, oh, wow. So I don't get to be a psychologist when I finish this bachelor's. That's okay. So then I sat down. I was like, well, what do I need to even be eligible to apply?
Yeah.
And learned that one, I really needed to increase my GPA because my first quarter at college, remember I talked about remedial writing classes, some challenges. I had a
Mhm.
2.7, 2.6 or something GPA.
Mhm.
And when I look, it's like most applications require a minimum of 3.0, but really
Yeah.
you want more to be competitive. So that's the only thing I focused on was, well, my next step is I have to increase my GPA so that I could even apply to
Mm.
these programs. And
Mhm.
every single next step after that on my journey was just one more step. What is the next step that I need to take? Not what are the next 30 steps that I'm going to need to take, because it really was a lot. But in my mind, the way that everything seemed doable and achievable and possible was to just think of, well, what's my immediate next step? What's the
Mm.
next thing that I can do? So at that time was increase my GPA. So then it's doing the things that I needed that, then learning about the resources available to me to help me with that, then like accessing those resources. I went into a master's instead of directly into a PhD because I didn't get into a PhD in my first round, but I got into a master's program. So I thought, well, that's my next step. It's doing this program before the PhD. And what I want to come back to, remember the lessons from our immigrant parents, is
Mm-hmm.
my parents, they instilled in me the belief of, betting on ourselves and taking those risks, because they took the biggest risk of all by
Yeah.
to the US. They left everything they knew. And so then I thought, well, I'm going to leave everything that I know for this big dream that I have too, and see what happens. And 13 years later, it became a reality. And so here we are. I finally become a licensed psychologist, and it happens December 2019. I'm a licensed psychologist, and I'm working at what I think is my dream job. I'm working at the University Counseling Center, focused on first-gen college students, and that's where I want to be. That's I start thinking, this is where I'll be at this university, then I'll retire. You start to visualize your life. Then, we're December 2020. I said December 2019. We're going into 2020, which is the beginning of the pandemic. And suddenly the work culture shifted
Yeah.
significantly. So now, what I had envisioned would be my dream career, dream job, became a space where I was heavily burned out, exhausted, struggling with my own mental health and wellness as I was doing this career that I in my mind was like, this is my dream career. Why am I so stressed out all the time? And it wasn't actually until I started to remember earlier, I said my husband's my biggest cheerleader. He's so wonderful with that. Is when we first met, I first met my husband July 2020. We had virtual dates. It was a very interesting experience.
Yeah.
But he caught on to really quickly how I'd complain about work a lot,
Yeah.
you know. And he said one thing to me that stays with me till even now. It's, he's like, you should try to do this on your own. And I was like, I'm scared. He's like, well, those jobs are not going anywhere. You can always try. And if it doesn't work out, you can go back to the job. Like, it's not, I think in my mind, every next step that I had taken up until that point, there was a reason or purpose for it, right? Like to get to that PhD, to get to
Mm-hmm.
this degree, to get to this job. And now I'm at this job and I'm going to look at how to potentially lose it, like how to
Mm-hmm.
fail at this job.
Mm-hmm.
And, but when it's like the job's not going anywhere, you're just going to try and see if you can do it on your own. And if that doesn't work, you go back. And something
Mm-hmm.
about that statement made it so clear to me, because when we talk about burnout, I was having physical illness. I had to take medical disability leave because of how sick I was getting from all of the stress. So it was definitely, my body was telling me, because I wasn't ready to accept it. And so launched a business to go into private practice, and then fell in love with entrepreneurship, realized that this is where I get to be in my creative zone of genius. I think people call it
Mm-hmm.
different things, but what I
Yeah.
found, what I always wanted as a psychologist, and I could name this when I was younger, was I wanted to be a psychologist because I always wanted options. I wanted options when it came to my career. I wanted to know that there would always be something I could do. And somewhere that message got lost to, I want the stable job, the 401k, the like golden
Mm-hmm.
handcuffs that many people now reference.
Wow.
And then I thought, when I went into entrepreneurship, I felt like, wow, I really was starting to limit myself again, limit my expansion. Because this whole episode's about expansion, right? I was limiting my expansion, where I was just trying to figure out how to work within a system
Mhm.
where what I needed was my own space, where I wasn't limited by the different bureaucracies or rules that happen when you're working for an agency, right? So
Yeah.
went into entrepreneurship, knew nothing about private practice. So like I share these pieces because oftentimes we think like, well, if you know something, maybe it's easier. Yeah, of course, if you have some kind of network already, it helps, but it's not impossible to do it without a network. I think that's what I hope people live with today, leave with a message is that when I say anything is possible, it's just about identifying that first step. So we went back to, well, step one, I don't know anyone in private practice full time. At that time, I didn't know anyone, but I knew some
Mhm.
people who had a part-time private practice. So
Mm.
started talking to them, talking to people then they knew and building my network that way. Networking, as you probably know yourself and you've experienced, the most
Yeah.
powerful tools that we have available to us. So just like before, taking steps, taking one step at a time and recognizing, well, what do you need? And
Yeah.
I realized what I needed, step one was a network because I didn't even know where to start with building a private
Mhm.
practice. But I
Yeah.
could start by reaching out to the people I knew, get introduced to more people and going, and again, but this is also beginning of like, this is also, oh, this was still so I realized, let me go back timeline. It was April 2021 when I finally was like, let's try this leap. So
Mhm.
after a year and a ish of being super burnt out as an officially licensed psychologist, and I built a network. The only way that I knew is finding people. I started to show up more online because that was also I had to think of like what are the resources available to me. Freshly
Mhm.
graduated, so
Mhm.
something just around my career. When you get a PhD in counseling psychology, at least for me, after you graduate, you get licensed. That year that you're getting your licensing hours, you're getting paid as a essentially think of it as an intern. So my first year,
Mm.
before I had my PhD, I made $30,000 that year.
Mhm.
Living in Southern California, my cat had gotten sick, required, so there's a lot of other financial stressors that I had. And at that time, I thought, like, I don't actually have, when I would Google, like, what do you need to do this? It all required a pretty high amount of investment, financial investment that I just quite literally didn't have at the time because I was just transitioning to working for myself and to having a salary after paying off. And I had medical debt for my cat. So like there's a lot
Yeah.
going on. So if anyone's wondering why not, that is another path. If you have saved money and you have resources, then you can hire a lawyer, you can find people that can like help build the practice. But the networking part's still really important for any career that you do, especially as an entrepreneur. You want to be in touch with other people who do what you do,
Mm.
because these are the people who will help refer you more business or just help you out and help entrepreneurship, as amazing as it is for creative experiences, it can also be isolating if you're not intentional about community.
Right.
So taking one step at a time and loved it, loved the private practice, and then found myself with just opportunities from companies reaching out, asking me to speak for them. And then me one time asking, like, can I help with something else? And being offered an opportunity to write. And so, and saying yes, even though it was scary. So my formula for when I think of my like path was taking one step at a time, asking for help. That's part of networking. Then it's being open minded about the opportunities that are available to you and being willing to ask for maybe something that you do not feel ready for and trusting that it's going to be okay. So the example I'll give is I'm a frequent contributor to Hip Latina. I write for them on average once a month now, and I focus on first gen Latina mental health. And I got that opportunity because initially they reached out to me. They asked me to do an Instagram live with them. And when
Mhm.
we finished Instagram live, I thought, I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed working with them. I'd like to continue working with them. And so then I just asked,
Mm.
is there a possibility for us to continue working together? Oh, sorry, I'm hitting my computer. Is there a possibility? I got excited. Is there a possibility for us to continue to work together in some way? And
Mhm.
then they asked me, they're like, well, do you write? Do you feel
Mhm.
comfortable with writing? Remember
Mhm.
earlier what I said? writing was
About the
hard.
writing.
Journey was so
Yeah.
long. It was hard. Or for me to write because I was like, do I write? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
just getting over my trauma of getting through the dissertation. But
Yeah.
I said yes. I said yes,
Yeah.
I do write. Yes, I can do that. I'd love to do that. Let's move
Yeah.
forward with that.
Yeah.
And then we got one writing assignment, and then I kept asking again for more. I submitted it, and it would take me, it still takes me hours to submit this. So, like what they pay me versus the amount of time that I spend on it. Um, but for me, it was an investment in my growth as
Right.
well, in some in like personal growth, but also like marketing, all of that helps. And so I kept
Yeah.
asking for more until I became a regular contributor. And let me tell you that this formula of when you have when you, it's part of relationship building, but when someone offers an opportunity for you, it's always asking like, are is there another way for us to work together? Asking yourself that if there's something specific you want to ask for, or even just open ended, like I did with Hip Latina, and then I had that opportunity, and so now I'm learning how to do that as a speaker because when I first got my first speaking engagements, it was the one and done. Like I did this, and
Yeah.
later in this year, now that I've been more intentional about learning and growing, I've learned, ooh, I'm supposed to ask for more there too. I'm supposed to ask for
Yeah.
more collaboration and ongoing opportunities, and we can talk about that. But I know it was a very long way of sharing my journey.
No, that's amazing. I think just like seeing your trajectory and the ways in which how it unfolded, I think it it just makes it so much easier to imagine the possibilities. Like you said, like anything's possible. Sometimes it's when, we hear stories of success all the time and just like how people got to where they are. But, there's a lot of key moments that sometimes are missing that don't fill the complete picture. And hearing your story, it makes it makes it feel like it's possible. Like you can do that too. You can ask for opportunities. You can
Yeah.
take it one step at a time, right? And I think that is key there too, is being able to not get overwhelmed by all the possibility, all the different things that are possible, and identifying the one thing that you need to do next so that you can continue to move in the right direction. So
Yes.
staying the course, and I think that's always hard, like to identify the one thing and just staying focused on the one thing that makes your journey move forward.
Yeah.
Um,
And I would say if it gets hard to think about like what's the one thing, then it's that can feel like a lot of pressure at times. Then it's thinking about like, well, whenever I do have an option presented, I will choose the option that is more aligned with the value,
mm,
with the goal that I have, right? So if I'm struggling to decide what is my next step towards this big dream, um, and that for me it's speaking, right? Right now, becoming a well, having public speaking be the main part of my business, I'm going to be more likely to say yes to those kinds of opportunities to be on stage and speak, versus opportunities to grow my client base as a therapist, as a psychologist. And in
yeah,
fact, this year, that was a choice that I made where I started off the year and I said, I'm not going to take new clients. I'm not going to take
yeah,
new clients to make space for this, which is terrifying because clients are my
yeah,
main source of income. I'm not taking
yeah,
new clients. And
right,
I've had clients get laid off, so they have to stop seeing me. I've had clients move out of state so we can continue to work together. I've had lots of shifts happening where I was like, I didn't anticipate this many clients would drop off.
yeah,
And I now I have a new safety net, right? Remember my safety net before was there's always a job, there's always a
yeah,
job. I'm like,
mm-hmm,
I could always open up to new clients. But we are
yeah,
6 months into the year
yeah,
and I have still not accepted a new therapy client because
mm,
I want to make the decisions that are going to help me have the time capacity, whatever that is, to actually build myself as a speaker and have that be the primary focus. And if my focus is everywhere else, I can't have that happen. So, um, but yeah, there's lots of moments where I'm like, oof, people might email me like, are you taking new clients? Are you available? And those moments, it's especially hard to say no when I know I have someone who's about to transition out because they're moving or something, right? So,
Right.
but I'm trusting my dream and the process in that as I continue to show up, more opportunities will come. And so, you know,
Gold.
we're doing
That's
it.
gold. Yeah.
Oh,
Trust. You got to trust yourself. You got to trust in your process and in your decision making. Okay, so I do want to go into, I mean, you've touched a lot on different ways of the ways you've moved in your journey, and then as you grow in your professional career as a speaker, as a psychologist. um have you felt like healing has been a big part of that, and how has that shown up in all of this?
yes.
uh yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Baptiste. That's like the best question to ask because earlier, remember when I talked about some of the challenges where like I had to find the resources that I had at the time when I first started. My biggest resource that I could give was my time because it wasn't a financial investment. And sometimes that can make it hard when you don't have the same resources as someone else as you're chasing your dream. But
Right.
part of being first gen is being resourceful. It's finding, well, what can I do? What are the ways that I can make this work for me?
Mm-hmm.
And so finding the resources that work for you, but not getting caught in what I now commonly hear everyone talk about as a scarcity mindset,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or this crabs in the bucket mentality of this fear that there is not enough for everyone, that there's not enough for
Right.
you. So I think a big part of that healing is accepting, right? What do I have? How do I adapt? But always coming from a space of there will be opportunities out there. Like right now, I would not be able to just trust that things are going to work out if
Yeah.
I was stuck in a scarcity way of thinking, because
Right.
then I would have a hard time saying no, saying no to like my income in the way that I'm saying now, say yes
Yeah.
to a potential
Yeah.
for other opportunities because I trust that it's going to work out. So healing your mindset is big with that scarcity mindset. It's so strong, especially like I grew up in a working class family. We
Mm-hmm.
had to be really careful around things. I never asked for things because I knew my family couldn't afford it. And so it made it so that when I, was starting this business, realizing I have to be mindful around that. So money, figure out your money relationship with money and money trauma. There's so many amazing resources that can help you with that.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the healing. But I think the biggest step towards my healing, and I'm a psychologist who's in therapy. So I have a therapist. I see
Mm-hmm.
my therapist right now every other week. Sometimes I'll see her weekly, depending on the season of life that I'm in.
Yeah.
Uh, and the healing mindset that I had to really work on was this belief that I needed someone else's permission
Mm-hmm.
to to do whatever, right? And when I say permission, sometimes it's cloaked as external validation. You do something and then you wait. Well, do other people like that I did that? How do I feel about that? Your metrics for how you're looking at this, it's like, are you more focused on how many people are liking that you're doing this versus how much you're actually enjoying doing this? Or are you doing this
Yeah.
because you think other people will want you to do this? Or are you doing this because this is something that you want, that's important to you, that you value along the way? And I'll always talk about values. And so healing comes from realizing that you're not waiting for anyone else's permission to take action. From small things of if you want to go see a movie, if you want to go eat at that restaurant, if you want to go, whatever it might be, you don't have to wait for anyone else to do that with you. You can do that alone. You can take the first step towards getting you there. Prioritize that. Prioritize the things that fill your cup in that way. So the permissions to release the scarcity mindset, and obviously the larger healing, I think just generally um, came from accepting my cultural identity, the values that I was raised with, and recognizing those as strengths, recognizing how confident I already was,
Mm-hmm.
and that fuels how much more confident I am now. Like,
Yeah.
and you'll see me or you hear me say this all the time. If you're first gen, if you're the first person in your family to graduate high school, to go to college, to have a corporate job, whatever it might be, if you're the first only, you had no guidance, you're trailblazing, then you are a confident person because it
Mhm.
takes confidence to do every one of those things that I just listed. It takes confidence to show up, be the first, be the only, to do something with minimal to no guidance, and to trust that you're going to figure it out, or that as hard as it may be, you will figure it out. That takes confidence. And when I had that click for me, like, oh, like I was a very confident person. Like,
Yeah.
person saying you're a very confident person. You just
Yeah.
now have to learn how to channel that confidence that's ingrained in you to show up in these other spaces. And confidence doesn't look like not being afraid, not being nervous, not like you're confident and can still be afraid, you're confident you can still be nervous. I still get nervous before any speaking opportunity, no matter how
Mhm.
small or how big it is.
Yeah.
I'm internally, my heart is racing, my palms are sweaty, and
Yeah.
I'm showing up, and I will occasionally, the first few words out of my mouth are shaky,
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
shaky. And
Yeah.
I might be holding the mic and being like, everyone can see that I'm just holding it, you know. It's not, but but
Yeah.
I'm there because the confidence that it took for me to just stand up there. Like that's
Mm.
the confident, right? And you move through, you speak through the shaky voice, the nerves, you
Yeah.
find your confidence and you make that connection, and then it clicks for you. Like, I deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about speaking because that's what I'm doing, but that applies to anything that anyone does in their career as
Mhm.
an entrepreneur. You know, you take the risk and it's scary. Um,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
sometimes it works out, and maybe sometimes it doesn't. But you took another confident step towards
Yeah.
your dream. And that's always worth celebrating.
That's amazing. Well, I mean I felt so empowered by you right now, and I hope that listeners listening to everything that you had to say in this moment really gave them the energy to understand and to realize that every single courageous step that they've taken is confidence, and that confidence does live. So thank you for that reminder, and giving us your process and reminding us that everybody has the ability and the power to figure out ways to show up even when we're feeling the, for me it's the sweaty armpits. That's my reaction. Like no matter what I do, if I'm doing a workshop, if I'm doing a podcast, if I am doing a even like one-on-one coaching session, sometimes I really have to, now it's a practice that I've come to, is I have to meditate before any sort of performance. I mean, I call it a performance because it feels like you're stepping onto a stage and wanting to be present, right? So, um, whether it's one on one or podcast or in front of a crowd of in a room full of people, the feeling is gonna be there. And so for me, I've learned to regulate that through meditation and literally regulate the bodily reactions that are going through all of that. So thank you so much for sharing your journey and your story. I want to wrap it up by asking, how can people find you? How can people work with you and connect with you and continue to share in your story?
Yeah, thank you so much, Beatrice. All right, so you heard me talk about speaking this whole time. So if you are working for an organization or, planning an event, I'd love to come speak at your event. I speak on the intersection of culture, identity, and belonging. And my most requested topic is the imposter phenomenon, but I'll speak on mental health, managing stress in the workplace. And when I'm speaking to mental health professionals, I'll talk about first gen mental health, parentification. And so
Mhm.
you can learn more about the topics that I offer on my website. And my website's calitheawellness.com. It'll be in the show notes, I'm sure, but
Mhm.
Calathea refers to plants, the plant species. There's one over here in the corner. That's a Calathea. It's the one I bought the day that I moved, that I left my job. The day I quit my job, I bought that plant. And Calathea symbolize new beginnings, or to turn over a new leaf. I believe, first gens, we are the new beginnings for our families, our familias. And so that's why that's extra special for me. So hire me to speak, book me for your next event. I do virtual or in person, and I'd love to travel, right? I love going places for that. And I do write, and to further expand on my thought leadership. And if you're an organization looking for someone, a new voice for your media publication, I'm open for that. And I have a few slots available for something that's called Pick My Brain. So oftentimes, pick your brain. How did you do this? How did you do that? Like, well, let's talk about that. It's like, so I have an offering now to Pick My Brain. That's like these one-time sessions for people who want to understand. So think of it like a one-time kind of coaching. I think would be the best way for people to think about, like, as you're thinking about, how do I start my speaking career? How do I work with first gen, like, individuals, right? I'm first gen myself. How do I launch? I'm happy to share more of my journey. And you can reach out for that, and we would lead with tangible tools. Those are the ways you can work with me. How to connect with me. So I am on Instagram at the first gen psychologist, and on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn, I'm trying to grow my LinkedIn this year, because apparently that's where many of the decision makers are at when it comes to public speaking. So hang out with me on LinkedIn. I'm sharing as much as I can on there, more so this year than in the past. And so on there, you can find me using my name, Dr. Lisette Sanchez, or you can search the first gen psychologist, and I will come up as that as well. But yeah, those are the main ways you can hire me, connect with me. And the last thing before I forget, sign up for my newsletter. So if this kind of conversation was really helpful for you, sign up for my newsletter. It's free. And with signing up, as a gift that I have to you all, these 2 free guides. One is for navigating self-doubt, and the other one is for navigating guilt that comes up. Both of them part of the first gen experience. So go to my website at the top, sign up for my newsletter, and you'll get these 2 free guides. They're free only for 2025. So make sure you download them before the end of the year.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Lisette. I just know that people left today feeling really empowered. And that's an understatement, because there's so much that you share today with us in terms of your framework, your ability to stay focused, and the reminders that you share with us, that we're all very confident. And thank you for sharing how you've expanded throughout your career, how you've expanded throughout your entrepreneurship journey, how you continue to expand, and how we continue to navigate that expansion. Because sometimes it's, like you said, it's really scary, freaking scary. But we got to learn how to support ourselves through that. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. I hope that Dr. Lisette's wisdom and story left you feeling inspired and ready to take action. Before you go, I want to invite you to reflect on the following question. What is your but, or what is your what if, that is getting in the way of your expansion? Take some time to journal about this, and remember the end strategy that Dr. Lisette shared with us today. You can do this and that. You are already confident, and you have already everything that you need within you. If you want more resources, remember to come to the show notes, where you can get all of the links to Dr. Lisette's page, her Instagram, and her LinkedIn. Make sure that you connect with her and go over to her website to download her freebies. And you can always come back to beabosscoaching.com, where you can gather more resources as well that will support you in your journey. Here's something special. Remember that next week is our final episode, so make sure you don't miss it. Until then, keep expanding, keep showing up, and keep being the boss of your own story. I'll see you next time.